Hello, everybody. And today I have the pleasure, immense pleasure, to have today Nigel Risner. Am I saying it right? Because I remember one of those days you mentioned something that you do all the time is actually you write your name down, right?
I write mine down phonetically as it should be said, not as it is. So I often
Right.
spell it Rizner. So then they say Risner. Otherwise, they go
Ah,
Risner, Prisoner. They come up with different names. And there's nothing worse than if you're introduced on stage and your name is badly presented. So our job as speakers is to make the MC or the introducer as easy as possible and in double font writing, because often it's quite dark when you're introduced. So if you
mm,
say to people, which is I used to say, my bio is in the back of my book. The problem is the bio in the back of my book is quite small. So the person reading it, so we print it in A5 or whatever the numbers are, and post and then tape it in the back of my book. So they're still reading it from my book, and we'll come on to why they do that. So it looks like they're reading from the back of my book, but the name and the main introduction of mine are my words read from my book, and they can easily read it. So if ever you're
yeah.
being asked to be introduced, you print out, but in big font, because I'm 61. I can barely see my own watch when I'm on stage. Okay. Which is why having an Apple Watch is quite good on stage. We're going off on a tangent. I had a beautiful, for my 50th birthday, a Cartier watch that cost me thousands, but I could never see the time. No, it was the most beautiful watch, but I couldn't read the time. So I resold my watch, because when you're on stage, there's nothing worse than doing this. So one of the things that I also do is make sure there's a clock at the back of the room, because I hate somebody doing this to me, like 10 minutes to go. I nearly know my timing to literally the second. So I often speak for 42 minutes.
Right.
However, as a professional speaker, and I know I'm not even following the script here, and also never follow a script, I
That's all
often
right.
will ask the MC or the organizers, regardless of whatever time I start, when do you want me to finish? Because I don't want to be the person
Oh.
who's late for either lunch, tea, the close, for the president to be talking. So I
Mm,
guarantee my organizers, regardless of every other unprofessional speaker that has gone on too long, I will
mm.
finish on time. The only thing I can't prevent is a standing ovation. So I
Of
tell
course.
them I'll be 41 minutes and 55 seconds
Plus.
plus a standing ovation. But no organizer's mind. However, let me just share, if you're ever speaking to an audience and you're the speaker before lunch or before the close of play, if you're 5 minutes early, the organizers will love you.
Mm,
The tragedy is most speakers who aren't professional but call themselves professional speakers always talk too long, because they think
mm,
their slides are more important than the audience. But it's not even the audience that's more important. It's the person who booked you. It's the coach that might be taking them to some other event. It
mm,
might be, I tell my clients they can ladle soup at 12:59 and 58 seconds, and I will be finished.
mm. For that.
I promise you, it makes a difference if you're a professional speaker. The tragedy is most professional speakers are not professional. They might earn money from speaking, but they're not professional.
Mm. And I think that's a big thing as well. And continuing how we started here, there was something that in one of the events we did, you talked, so we talked about the intro with your name spelled properly, but you talked about the outro, which is something that I've never done before until I heard you say it. So tell me about what's the
Okay,
outro?
so here's the point, that normally you're introduced brilliantly by the MC. Our next speaker is Claire. She's done this, that, and the other. She's vivacious. She wears red. She's brilliant, and all the rest. And then you finish, and then this is what happens. Now, you heard Claire, but now we've got Nigel Risner. We've got the main speaker. And all of a sudden, you've been diminished because now they've got, you know, the runner, the athlete, the spaceman, an MP. They've got dame, lady, whoever it is. And now what's happened is Claire's forgotten because the next build-up is brilliant. So you need to make sure that the person who, before they introduce the next speaker, thanks Claire for the wonderful interview they've just done with Nigel Risner. And Claire is available for keynotes and is going to be at the back of the room at the end of the speech. And I understand she's going to stay through lunch to answer any questions. And now we're going to introduce Nigel Risner. If you don't do that, very quickly you've been forgotten because I'm the biggest keynote speaker, or Jeff Ram is, or Paul McGee, or Steve Head, or whoever it might be. And too often we are then forgotten because we're just part of the menu. Now, when a waiter comes up to you to give you the meal and he starts telling you about the starter, he doesn't then say there's another meal. He then says, thank you. He takes away the plates and then introduces the next course. But I always ask, how was your starter? What can we do to have made it better? Your job is to share with the person introducing you how you want to be introduced and how you want to be closed. However, you never want to finish with a Q&A.
Right, and that's so powerful as well. That is so powerful.
Now,
You
you're
know,
then
last
going
week
to
I
say
was...
to me, but the organisers would like it. Well, they might like it. The problem is I will do Q&A 5 minutes before the end of my speech, but I want to close my speech with a powerful, uplifting message. Otherwise, you get someone who says this, we've had problems with the toilet for the last year, and I'd like to know, how do I tell the person about the toilet? And then you've done this whole inspirational speech. You've got them all crying or laughing, and you've really uplifted the audience. And because you're now doing a Q&A, you're allowing the audience to take charge of you. And there's nothing wrong with that. The tragedy is you're not in control of the questions. And so I just finished a school, okay? One of the hardest schools in the UK. I mean, it really is a horrific school. Horrific in the sense that these kids are, the next stage for them is going to be prison. So it was stunning. Right. But before I finished, and I knew it was coming, one of the kids said to me, what's your view on Andrew Tate? Now, you may not even know who he is. No. He was a cage fighter, whatever they call it. It will come to me. But he also has been in prison. He got arrested for sex trafficking and everything else. Well, if that had been the last question today about Andrew Tate, I know why the kid wanted to know. Because he wanted to know, did I know him or was I influenced by him? And this was a power play by the kid. I was able, because I knew that wasn't the last 5 minutes, for me to close my own speech. Now, these were very vulnerable kids, and it would have been really a downer if that had been the last thing they heard was me defending or attacking one of their heroes. So if you're in Gangland, London, Andrew Tate is a hero.
Right, okay.
Like all the stuff you're reading about Russell Brand, whether you agree or disagree, you don't want to get embroiled in what's your view on Jimmy Savile? What's your view on Prince Edward, Harry and Meghan? I don't want to get involved in my last question. So you need to make sure you start brilliantly by being introduced well. Your opening minute is a powerful story quote. So if you visualize my hand, the first second needs to be brilliant. You do not want to be doing this. Thank you, Claire, for allowing me to be part of your webinar. I'd really like to thank the organisers, and it's been a lovely day so far, and thank you and good afternoon. I mean, that's how most people start. They say, thank you so much indeed. Good afternoon. My name is Nigel. Now, bearing in mind, on this slide, it says Nigel Risner. I know your name. The time is 4 o'clock. The audience knows what time it is. They know your name. You've just been introduced. Go straight into it with a bang.
Yeah.
So your opening line grabs them. And if you're a comedian, your second best joke would be first. And your best joke would be the last thing they hear.
Oh, really cool. Really good. Yeah, really good.
If you watch a James Bond film, the opening scene of every James Bond film is 007 in some car chase through a marketplace. They don't start talking about the terrorist or Algeria or some country you've never heard of in Macedonia. Within 2 seconds, there's a car chase and everyone's gripped. And then at the very last second, you probably won't know this, but the very last second of every James Bond film, after all the credits, they tell you the next James Bond film.
I haven't realized that. I have not noticed that.
As a professional speaker, we want to start well, and it might be a very sad story, and you're going to be a little bit quieter and draw them in. It might be a poem. You may have heard of Janice Stanfield. She's a motivational keynote singer. She starts with a song, you know, even a small star shines in the darkness. I'm not lost, I'm exploring. You know, she'll start off very powerfully with a song, and she'll close with her best song. What we do as speakers, we waste 2 or 3 minutes thanking the organisers and saying how lovely it is to be here, when it's sometimes not. And so you've got to be really careful. Nobody wants to be near Heathrow Airport on a Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock when 90% of the audience has left because they want to beat the traffic. And I've done this. Now, let me share one last thing because I'm going off on a tangent. In the old days as a speaker, you either wanted to be the opening keynote speaker or the closing keynote speaker.
Right.
You don't want to be doing that. This is going to be a big secret now. If you're the opening keynote speaker and there are traffic or train delays, half your audience aren't there.
Right. Oh, yes, I've experienced that in Dubai. I've definitely experienced that in
Dubai, because I've been in Dubai many times, or even Abu Dhabi. If you're the closing speaker after lunch and tea on a Thursday evening, they've left. They've gone home. What you want to be is the closing speaker before lunch on the last day. Everyone is there for that. Every hour after lunch on the last day, 10, 23. I mean, I've had 700 people leave before I've just spoken because I was the last speaker on a Friday afternoon at an airport hotel near Heathrow Airport. There were 2,000 before lunch on the Friday. There were 700 before the tea. And there was 100 people in the room that held 2,000 people on a Friday.
Oh, my word.
Now, even though I'd been paid my full fee, I felt terrible because what people also do is they sit at the edges, not next to people. So it looked worse. So as professional speakers, our job is to create energy from the first moment. But you also need to know when the energy in the room is going to be there. It won't be there at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, and it won't be there at 5 o'clock on a Friday evening. But they used to be the 2 slots that professional speakers wanted. They wanted to open the conference or they wanted to close the conference.
Yeah.
Before lunch on the last day is a very good time. Also, you may know this, or some of your listeners know this, the exhibitors, the minute lunch is done on the last day, close everything down.
I guess.
So all of a sudden now you've got banging going outside. You've got things moving at the back of the room because they want to go home. They're not staying till the end.
No.
Even though they might be sponsoring the event. So your job is to create energy from the beginning. And your job is to create massive energy at the end. So they remember some of your key words. So you want to have the time to repeat some of the key words and then an action they're going to take. So you are remembered and the conference is remembered. My only job, and I did a post on this on LinkedIn today, is to get rebooked. It's not to be liked. Being liked is a bonus. Being rebooked is my job.
It's true.
So you may get better ratings than me, but I'm going to be nasty now. My rebooking rates are probably higher than yours.
Yes.
I've been Marmite. Do you know much? Do you know about Marmite?
How long have you been doing this, Nigel?
Okay, so I have just celebrated my 25th year as a Vistage speaker. So I've just done, I've done 26 years, but I just last week did my 25th year as a speaker for the biggest CEO groups in the world.
Wow. Wow, wow. And so have you been the chief zookeeper that whole time, or how did you
No.
get into that?
Okay. So my background was self-esteem and peak performance.
Oh, okay,
That's how I
interesting.
started. My trainer, my coach, was a guy called Jack Canfield, who wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul books.
Little man.
Yep. So I worked and went on his first course in 1994. No,
Wow.
95. And then for 4 years, I staffed on his course until I ran half of his program.
Oh,
So that was in
wow.
1998, 99. And then Jack, when he came to England, stayed here. So I know Jack very well. But over the next 20 years, but going back, I didn't write my book, It's a Zoo around here, till 2004.
Okay.
So that was my book on communication. And then over the time with LinkedIn and everything else, I was saying to audiences, whether you've done Myers-Briggs, Belbin, DISC, Insight, Colors, and my communication program, all of it didn't work. Get ready for this. Because I would be speaking to an audience of trainers of Myers-Briggs, Belbin, DISC, and I would ask them, so what am I? And they
Mm.
wouldn't know who I was, even though I'd been speaking for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. But they knew who they were. And the tragedy is, if you know who you are, unless you talk to yourself, it doesn't matter. Your job as a speaker and as a trainer is to know who your audience are. So I
Yeah.
know your communication style literally within 2 minutes, okay? And my job is to feed you the food you need, which is why I was a minute early for this. If you remember, I was on before you because you were doing your makeup, even though you don't need to, but you were doing your makeup. I just thought I'd let the audience know that you weren't here when I
Little bit,
was.
just keeping my little eyelashes going.
But I knew it was important to you that I was here at 3:59 because we were starting at 4 o'clock.
Mm.
Not I'm going to turn up maybe at 4 o'clock and then we'll see, because that's called being professional. So all of a sudden, I started saying to people that if you're doing animals or you're doing colors or you're doing DISC and DISC, your job is to get into the middle. And in the middle of my animal stuff is the zookeeper. And the zookeeper's job is to feed the animals, whether you're a monkey, lion, elephant, or dolphin, the food they want, not the food that I've got. Now, a lot of people have seen me speak, and there are times when I'm on stage, I am very close to the line. I'm a little bit naughty. I'm very close to the line. And some people say not professional. And that's because I've gone into monkey mode. And I'm a cheeky monkey. There are times I go a little bit serious when I go into lion mode. I do a lot of work on forgiveness, which most people don't know, when I go into dolphin mode. But I can't get to the elephant place because they need too much information. It's just too much trouble for me. But I understand they need facts, they need figures, they need quotes, and they need references. So I've always got information they can go to, either on my website, there's a quiz, I can send them stuff.
Right.
I just can't talk about it. It just bothers me and it annoys me. So I make it very clear that I'm not the best zookeeper, but I understand that if you want to get on with your audience, you need to know who they are. So the people that sit in the back corners are normally
Mm.
elephants. They
Right.
are checking your facts. They need to know they can escape. They're not going to participate. And their worst nightmare is when the speaker or trainer says, talk to the person next to you. They hate that. And that's because the speaker or trainer has not recognized that that group of people doesn't want to do it.
No.
The monkeys love it because it means they can just talk shit. Okay, they haven't even heard what the instructions are. They're eating, they're drinking, they've got tea, they're moving their chairs. But that's only 25% of the audience. So you're upsetting a big chunk of your audience because you as the trainer think it'll be a good idea. Now, you've been to
Mm.
Professional Speaker Association meetings, and there are
Mm.
some people in the PSA who definitely don't want to talk to the person next to them. And they're experienced enough to know what they do is they stand up, start talking, or you can leave the room. Now,
Right.
they're not being paid, but if you're doing a global event and you've got the chief accountant or the chief executive officer who doesn't want to get involved in touching knees with the person next to them, you need to be aware who's in your audience. And you are responsible to the audience, not for the audience. But you've got to be really careful that it's a safe space. And most speakers have a repertoire. They just do what they always do. My job as a zookeeper is to know who's in the audience. And I often will ask a very simple question in the beginning. And the question that I ask will let me know who's in the room. Because some won't answer, some don't want to share, and I then know who's in the room. And it's not a complicated
very interesting
question. But what most people do is they're so busy on their own story, how they climbed the mountain, how they won the race, or these are the 7 tips to effective networking. They've forgotten the audience, haven't heard the speech. They don't know Tony Robbins. They don't know these people. They don't care. What they want is for them to feel included. They want to feel involved. They want to feel inspired.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this, remember when you've been in an audience and how you felt when the guy said, turn to your colleague and share your innermost secrets. They don't want to know. They don't want to do that, especially if they don't feel trusted. Sorry, if they don't feel there's trust in the room. Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent again. Apologies.
No, but it's true. I mean, it's something that I use because I've done NLP. So in NLP, one of the techniques that you do, and so I arrive very kind of dancing, and I'm on stage, and I'm kind of and depending on the room, I'll either get them up and dancing or I won't. But then there's there's 3 things. So the visuals, the audio, and the kinesthetic. So using the 3, so the 3 learning patterns, so you connecting with that each part of them, so they all connect suddenly to what you're saying right from the beginning. So it's the similar things that you're saying, really understanding your audience, who's in your audience, so you connect with all of them.
Except that too often people like you who are super excited want them to do stuff some of them aren't ready. Because you're a monkey, you think they want to dance, okay? And sometimes there's a group of people who are scientists or accountants or lawyers or surveyors. That is their worst nightmare because they think they're going to be made to look foolish. And so they need to feel comfortable before you make them uncomfortable. And too many speakers will say, well, I want to get you out of your comfort zones. The problem is it depends who's paying you. So I used to do that. So don't think I'm any better. I used to do that. But I now realize the person paying me is normally from finance. They don't want to dance or sing. Which is the other reason why that's why I get half my fee up front, just in case.
Very good point. Very good point. And so Nigel, how did you, I mean, you speak all around the world, and you've done less, from what I understand. You're doing less gig, but possibly at a higher fee. How did you actually move from that kind of had that fee? I know we always talk about fee with speakers, don't we? And I think there's something that you talk about as well. There's something that you always say. There's 3 things about fees, right?
Okay. So often you're asked to speak in an event, and what you have to decide is the fit right? Is the fee right? And if those 2 aren't, you have to flee. The problem is most speakers have such low self-esteem that the minute someone says, would you like to speak? They've gone, yes. They don't even know where it is, what the fee is, because they like to be loved. Okay, that's all of us, you and me included, okay? The tragedy is sometimes the fit is terribly wrong. That it's the wrong audience in the wrong place at the wrong time. So for me, 5 o'clock on a Friday in Liverpool is not right for me. I come from a Jewish background. I want to be home on a Friday night with my family, okay? And Liverpool back home is 3 hours, however fast you drive, okay? And then I've got grief for my family, and I've got children, I've got grandkids, and we have dinner together. Now, if the fee, though, was £25,000, I would be there.
Right.
So that comes to, is what I call sometimes prostitution money. So if the fee was big enough, I might change. And I've done a couple of countries, which I'm not going to mention at the moment, which have been very, very dangerous. Could have been real problems. But the fee was so high that I took the risk. I mean, I did have security literally in an armored vehicle from when I landed to when I literally in an armored vehicle from when I landed to when I went. And I had a
Oh, wow.
security guard. Yeah, but you see, you can only do that if the fee's right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I've been to some weird countries where phone contact was not easy, and I've been in some weird places, but the fee's got to be right. Or today's school where I wasn't paid, but it was a fit where I wanted to give back. I knew the headmaster, I knew the head of the media department, and it was a wonderful experience to give kids that would never normally experience someone like me. The fee was immaterial. It actually cost me money because I had to pay tax to go through London. It cost me £12.50 and I had petrol.
Back.
So my fee was minus £44. I didn't even cover my expenses. But the fit was right. But if it hadn't been a school and they weren't paying me, I wouldn't have done it. Now, let me just go back a step. There are times where I do what I call a showcase.
Yes.
Now, this is really, really important. But that showcase is part of my marketing budget.
Right. Okay.
So I don't advertise anywhere. I don't pay any advertising. I don't do Facebook ads or LinkedIn. But if you said to me, would I come to Dubai, there are going to be 700 HR managers who are my audience, or 700 chief execs, and I've done more chief exec groups than virtually anyone else in Europe, I know that that fit is right. And if there were 700 of them, the fee is nearly immaterial. But there's going to be some rules for me doing it. So whether my airfare is paid, I want someone meeting me at the airport, I want Cadbury's chocolate on stage.
Of course.
Because I want to be listened to. I want Diet Coke. I want a hotel room. I want to be picked up. I want an intro. I want my books on stage. And I want someone at the back of the room selling my books for me. Now, they're all my ground rules for doing the speech for a much lesser fee than normal, because it's what I call a showcase. That is my marketing budget.
Yeah.
If there were 700 chief execs in the audience, I would get at least 4 people who'd book me. Now, in theory, that's a terrible percentage, by the way.
Yeah, but if it's
Under half
full at,
but it could be
£20,000
of income. No, but it could be £100,000 of income to me.
Right.
And some of my clients rebook me every single year. So I worked last week. I worked with. How do I get this right here? Last week I worked with 2 clients who've booked me more than 15 times.
Wow.
Now, if I then go back to where one of them came from, it came from a showcase event. So I've earned from one of my showcases event, get ready for this, over £1 million from the original showcase event. But I chose the event because it was CIPD.
Right.
So I've worked with hundreds, literally, of HR directors, literally all over the world, from this first event, which was local to me, but that got me into doing Olympia, that got me into doing Harrogate, that got me into, and the list goes on. So you have to pick and choose what showcase events you do. I never use the word free, because the minute you say free, you feel cheap. You also then get a plastic cup of water on stage. Anytime there's a plastic cup of water on stage, I know it's a shit event, okay? I want a bottle of Diet Coke and I want Cadbury's chocolate on stage because it's some of my riders. I want to be picked up at the airport. I mean, some of it is so minor, but it makes an enormous difference. So you have to decide. So don't tell me your fee right now, but if your fee was $3,000, if someone said, will you do it for $2,000 and it was the right fit, the answer is yes, if it's the right fit. But these are my ground rules.
But
now, if someone wants to pay you $30,000, you might turn up naked.
We probably would, actually.
Well, yeah, I knew you were a cheap date, but you see, but that's the point. If they're going to pay you that type of money, your rules go out the window. Some speakers, their rules still apply. But if someone pays me that type of money and they want me to speak at 5 o'clock on a Friday, I'll do it. But if you want to pay me less than my normal fee, then there are some, I call ground rules to go in place. Most speakers say, okay, whatever. It's not that I've been doing it 25 years. It's some of the mistakes that I made in the beginning, because then you get treated like a plastic cup speaker. You'll find very few professional speakers have plastic cups on stage.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point.
And it's minor, but it makes a difference to me when I go on stage and there's a bar of Cadbury's, Diet Coke, a jug with a glass of water, and they've picked me up, and someone's read my notes, and they've introduced me well, and I've spoken to the events team, and I've spoken to the people controlling my slides, and the list goes on. I feel, a new word here, a mensch. I feel important to me that my self-esteem is being looked after. When there's a plastic cup on stage, I feel shite. And then my delivery, I know it's not going to be on my top game.
Well, I know you bespoke with your clients, but how do you evolve all the time? Do you research? Do you watch others? How do you keep that kind of edge to things?
Okay, so there's two things to that. Who's your favorite pop artist? Do you ever listen to music?
Celine Dion.
Okay, Celine Dion. If Celine Dion did not sing My Heart Will Go On, people would want their money back, okay?
True.
So there's a little bit of who I am. They're always going to get some of my greatest hits.
Yeah.
So whether you're Tom Jones, whether you're Take That, some of their biggest songs, they've got a brand new album coming out, Take That. So they're doing a new tour. If they only played songs from their new album, people would be really upset.
True.
What you have to do, why are people booking Claire? Okay, it's not for your new phenomenal material because they don't know what it is. It's because of what they've seen in the past. Now, what you may want to do, so let's use the last 3 years, is about hybrid working. It's about Zoom presentations. It's about understanding about mental health, about people not coming to the workplace. So I will introduce some of that because what we're doing now, we could never have done 20 years ago. Some people, there's one speaker who thinks he was on Skype 40 years ago. I didn't want to tell him it wasn't invented then, but that's a separate issue. But for most of us, we'd never done Zoom before, okay?
No.
So if you are going to use Zoom, it's an added bonus, but it's not as good as if you and I were face-to-face. I don't care what anybody says. I need to be able to physically feel your energy. And even though most people get mine because I'm quite out there, when people see me face-to-face, they say, it was different, even though the material is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So when you see Celine Dion and Barbara Streisand are one of the few people who sound as good as their album live, but it's very rare. Most people are much better live than just hearing a record, which is what Zoom is. However, in the new way of working, you don't have to be in the office, but you need to appreciate that in the office, there's different communication. There's different ideologies. There's different ways of working. So half of my speech is exactly the same as 20 years ago.
Really?
Half of my speech. And the reason is because it's really good.
Yeah.
Why would I want to give them my best, greatest hits? Rod Stewart not sailing. Elton John not singing Yellow Brick Road. It's great having all this brilliant new stuff. But if you only spoke about hybrid working, I wouldn't get booked. And so I've got a number of speaker friends that will have certain stories on their website. And I get asked, they've seen it. They go, can you make sure you do that story? And I nearly want to say to them, just watch the video. It's on there. It's no different to Peter Kay, Michael McIntyre. When they do their traditional man draw, or Peter Kay does about biscuits, Dunkin' Biscuits, everyone knows the story. But when you hear it live, Billy Connolly, these comedians will always do one or two jokes you've heard before.
Very interesting.
So when people say you've got to evolve, yes, you need to be aware that people aren't talking about Margaret Thatcher as our prime minister. Things have changed. We need to be talking about, there is, the new Queen Elizabeth line, and there is this H2 train, and there's ULEZ. So there's things you can introduce. But people are people, as much as you say. And if you give people too much new stuff, they go, yeah, but I just need to be able to communicate better. I need to be able to lead better. I need to be able to look after myself better. Diet, you know what? Diets haven't changed in 100,000 years. If you eat less calories than if you burn more calories than you eat, and you eat less calories than you should, you lose weight. But there's 5 million diet books because people think there's another way.
True.
Every woman, I'm going to be sexist here. Are you ready? I'm going to be sexist. Every woman who's bought a cookbook, okay, has barely made 3 things from that cookbook, okay? But we've got to buy it.
Yeah.
We all like the pictures. Every recipe's online, okay? But a book comes out with new pictures and it's a new 5-minute cooking. We buy it. The average woman, and I'm being sexist here because most men don't cook that well. There's going to be an uproar now. Get ready for it. I told you I'm naughty. The average woman who buys a cookbook does 3 recipes from that book. What they do is they cook the same old stuff they've always been doing. And you look at old cookbooks, the pages are, you can't virtually read the words. But they keep buying this shit, hoping they're going to get some miracle cure. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you want to edit that out, you can. But I want to make sure cookbook, women, I'll just keep saying it.
Okay, that's all. Well, okay, just to finish off then, Nigel, what would you say if you're a rising speaker going to an emerging to rising speaker, what are the 3 things that you really need that we really need to nail? We really need to nail those.
If you're not being rebooked, you're shit. That's the first thing to recognize.
Yeah.
If you're not getting recommendations, you're shit. Okay?
Yeah.
So forget the testimonials that people say, it was great. I don't care what the testimonials say. I'm interested. Am I rebooked? Am I referred? Am I invited back? That's the first thing. The second thing is to say to yourself, am I getting paid what I'm worth?
Yeah.
So I once was involved in a silent auction for me.
Oh, wow.
So
okay, that's interesting.
Okay, so I spoke in the morning and I was put up for auction in the evening. So it doesn't matter what my fee is. How much do you think I went for?
What were you doing for that? What were you doing for that?
I did a 2-hour presentation. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't my body, trust me.
I was just checking what was the auction.
It wasn't a strip show. Trust me, I'd get about 90p and I'd be paying them, okay? So go for this, okay? So I'd done a 2-hour presentation in the morning and they loved it. And then in the evening, I went up for auction. How much do you think they bid for me? Now, no one knew except one person what they'd paid. Well, have a guess.
50K?
Well, I went for 32,000, okay?
Wow.
And my fee in the morning was 3.5.
Wow.
Well, what I'm really saying is that's what they thought the speech was worth, okay?
Yeah.
So very few speakers get more than 10,000 in a speech. Very, very few. But to go from 2,000 to 3,000 is a 50% increase.
Yeah.
From 3,000 to 6,000 is doubling your fee. At some point, you need to ask. I remember a speaker in the Middle East. Do you know Reg Atwell?
Yes.
Okay, I once asked Reg. He got an enormous fee. And I said, you got to tell me the secrets. And he went, get ready for this. And he said, write this down. I went, okay, I'm ready. He went, ASK. I kind of went, yeah, pretty obvious. Most of us, we devalue what we do. And our worst nightmare is when a client says, what do you charge? Because our brain goes, 5,000 for 3,000. Even though we were going to charge 5. And then they go, no problem. So I'm going to go back a step. When I first came back from America in 1997, I'd done a bit of anchoring, a bit of NLP. I'm a £900 speaker. I'm a £900 speaker. I'm a £900 speaker. And the first phone call I got was, what you charge? And I went, £700. And they said, no sweat. I said, what would have been a sweat? And they said, we had £1,200 in the budget. Now, 25 years on, my fees have gone up. But there are still times where my brain takes over compared to my self-worth. So lesson number 2 is to think, what am I worth? And you're
Yeah.
not always going to get it. You're not always going to get it. But lesson number 3 is having another fee that's much higher with much added value.
Okay. Right.
So occasionally a client says to me, what do you charge? And let's say I say 12,000. I say, but let me tell you what it includes. It includes 150 copies of my book. It includes a follow-up Zoom presentation. It allows you to do questionnaires on my website. And the list goes on. They go, look, we just haven't got that. I said, no problem. We're going to take all of that away. And what you're going to get is my keynote speech of 45 minutes. And my fee is 8,000. They go, okay.
Okay.
But if I had gone in at 8, they'd have gone, we haven't got that. I'd end up going down to 6.
Right.
So sometimes I'll put in quite a high fee, and then I add the words, but are you aware what it includes?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that NLP, from your point of view, that suggestive language allows them to think what value they're getting. But here's the biggest tip. I'll do it with you. Okay, you ready for this? So I've got a keynote speech in a couple of weeks' time. What's your fee?
So I'm probably about 5,000, just
Okay.
5,000.
So you've made the biggest mistake. Okay, so you've shared your number before I've shared my numbers. Okay. Now ask me the same question.
So Nigel, what's your fee, please?
How many people will be in the audience?
About 400.
And if 400 people all increase their sales numbers by 5%, what would that work out? And they'll go £200,000. And if we could reduce staff turnover, what would that be worth? Well, like 250,000. And if we could get them to increase the hours, even if they work from home by 1 hour, what extra value would that be? And they'll say, well, 60,000. I said, so if I could deliver everything you wanted, that would be worth £800,000. My fee is 9,000. The minute you say your fee is 5 on the basis of nothing, because I've worked with hospitals and I'm in a room with an urn at the back of the room with 25 plastic cups, a tin of biscuits, and I'm the only speaker. If you said £5,000 straight off, that's half a nurse's salary.
Yeah.
But if you then said, but if I can get the nurses to work 3 extra shifts, and if I can get the nurses to have better mental health, and the list goes on, they would say that's worth £100,000. Well, my fee now of £6,000 is tiny. So you never want to put your number first, ever.
So it comes back to value, right?
Yeah.
Show you the value that you have, and then
But you want to get them to share. No, you want them to say what the value would be. So if I delivered, now, last thing I'm going to say, I offer 100% money back guarantee.
Okay, that's interesting.
Well, you see, I'm sharing with them. I'm going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm so confident you've got 30 days to decide if I was awesome or not.
Okay.
I expect a standing ovation when I speak.
Right. Yeah.
That's not what it's about. It's about 30 days later, did they value what my speech was about?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
In 25 years, how many times do you think I've ever been asked for my money back?
Twice?
I've never been asked. But let me go one step further. But I also guarantee my books. So if I sell books and you don't like it, you don't even have to send them back to me. We'll refund the books to you. Now, we've had 3 people ask for the money back. One was my mother, who didn't even buy the book to start with. And 2 people who were part of the organizers that wanted to see if I would do it.
Okay.
So there's no excuse not to buy my books. There's no excuse not to book me because I'm guaranteeing my fee. But can I go one more stage about guaranteeing fees? If I recommend another speaker, I guarantee their fee too.
Wow. That's cool.
You see, if you're going to recommend someone else, first of all, your reputation's on the line.
Yeah.
And the event team is on the line. So if I recommend one of my favorite 4 speakers, I guarantee their fee. Because sometimes I can't be there. So just think about, do you have a support system that should you not be there, you could recommend somebody? And will you guarantee their fee? If you're not willing to guarantee their fee, don't recommend them. Even if they're another NLP trainer or a PSA member, only guarantee their fee if you are that confident you'll pay the fee if they're wrong. I'll leave you with
Fantastic.
that.
I love it. Thank you so much. So much energy and so much value there. So many tips. I hope you've taken lots of notes, but you can always rewatch it. Press on the subscribe button. Go and check Nigel out and his YouTube channel. I love your Instagram as well. I'm always looking on your Instagram and loving your little funny little stories and things as well. So is the best place LinkedIn though, if people wants to connect with you?
NigelRisner.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, YouPorn, anything. I'm everywhere.
Thank you so much. And I
My
hope
pleasure.
to see you again very soon.
Be
Bye,
good.
everybody.
See you soon. Bye-bye.